Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a series highlight, and that's going to be the Paradise Trilogy by Elin Hilderbrand. The first book, Winters in Paradise, starts out with us learning about a helicopter crash over the Virgin Islands. We're then introduced to this woman, Irene Steele, who is kind of just demoted at her job, and she's very upset. She's dedicated her life to renovating her dream home and being an editor at the magazine. At the same time we're being introduced to her, we also find out that she finds out that her husband, Russ Steele, was one of the people that were killed in the helicopter accident. Along with finding out about this, she also finds out that her husband had a house in the Virgin Islands, which her and her two adult sons, Baker and Cash, never even realized he'd been to the Virgin Islands, much less owned a home there. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, we are introduced to some people in the Virgin Islands that find out that a woman named Rosie Small was one of the other people on the helicopter that were killed. And at this point, they kind of realized that the guy that Rosie had been seeing and kept a secret, he was known as the Invisible Man among her friends and family, that this other guy, Russ Steele, was the guy that she was seeing. And if I haven't mentioned it yet, they also have a daughter named Maya together. So Irene, Baker, and Cash head down to the Virgin Islands, and they go to a memorial service for Rosie that's hosted by her stepfather, Huck, her best friend, Ayers, and other community members. They quickly discover who Ayers is. It was Rosie's best friend, and they kind of start to get information from her, but they don't say who they are in relationship to the situation. They both immediately are attracted to Ayers, and they're both trying to not only get information, but also seduce her and kind of date her or whatever. So they're both automatically like competing for her attention. So while the boys are trying to date Ayers, Irene goes to the house and starts going through stuff and finds pictures of Russ and Rosie, and discovers that Rosie has a daughter, and she's just trying to like find out what's going on, because this whole life was a mystery to her. She befriends Huck, who was Rosie's stepfather, and that's when she finds out that Maya is also Russ's daughter. So Irene kind of wants to make some good out of this situation, so she asks Huck if she could meet Maya. So she brings Cash and Baker, and they explain that those are her brothers, and that she's kind of like a grandmother to her, and that if Maya ever needs anything, they're more than happy to help. Because Ayers was Rosie's best friend, and she kind of feels like some sort of parental authority over Maya. When Maya's going to meet them, she goes along with them. This is where she discovers who Cash and Baker are, and she kind of feels like a big betrayal that they never said, but they knew who she was. So they're back in Iowa City now, and Cash admits to his mom how much he really liked Ayers. She encourages him to go after what he wants. If he felt a connection with her, he should go after it. In the meanwhile, she felt a connection to Huck and really felt like he understood her, and that they kind of made friends with each other. So they both, Cash and Irene, both agree that they're going to go back to the Virgin Islands and stay in Russ's house. And just as the book ends, Huck gets a call that the FBI has been investigating the helicopter crash, and they suspect that it was not an accident. So the second book, What Happens in Paradise, pretty much picks up where the first book left off. Everybody's still upset and devastated, and they've just been left with this news that this might not have been an accident. Irene is trying to, figure out a lot of things with Russ's death, and his boss had him cremated without even letting Irina know, and is just being super shady. And she starts to find out that the job that Russ had, or she believed he had, wasn't the job that he had at all. So meanwhile, back in St. John, Huck is now going through Rosie's things and just trying to clear up things and move on, and he finds a large amount of cash that Rosie has. He winds up giving this to the FBI because he realizes Russ was up to something illegal. He's not sure what it was, but there was something going on. And he, during this time, he still has these feelings of friendship with Irene, and he calls her up just to, like they were doing in the first book, talk things out and really try to come to terms with their feelings. You find out a little bit more about Russ's past and also his relationship with Rosie's mother. Russ is the stepfather. So you find out a little bit about his past there, and Irene is talking to him about like some of the shady stuff going on with the boss, Russ's old boss, how like she can't get the birth certificate for him or the death certificate for him because although this was like a U.S. Virgin Islands thing, I think like where the helicopter crashed, it was the British Virgin Islands, so that is sort of holding things up even more. So all at the same time, Huck invites Irene to come down and work on the fishing boat with him. She spontaneously says yes, and she decides she's going to head down to St. John's. At the same time, Ayers and Cash have been talking, and Ayers suggests a job kind of doing tourist boats with her, and so he decides that this would be a perfect time for him to go down. At the same time, Baker and his wife Anna are separating. She wants to move to Houston with her newly admitted to Baker, her new female lover. They're both going to move to Houston, and she's happy to let Baker keep their son Floyd, have custody of Floyd, and he decides that this would just be that St. John was a great place and that this would be a great starting over point for them as Anna's starting over with her new girlfriend. So he also decides that he wants to go down to St. John. So all three of them decide at the same time that they want to head back to St. John. So we are now in the third book, Troublesome Paradise, and the Steele family is moving down to St. John to start living their new lives. And meanwhile, the FBI has been doing their investigations and going through everything. And it seems that the business that Russ had been in was very shady, and he'd almost been set up into purchasing all these investment properties on St. John. And now the FBI is seizing a lot of these assets, including the mansion that all three of the Steele family members were about to move into. So now they're kind of left with nowhere to live. So they have to kind of scramble to figure out what they're going to do. So Irene is working with Huck, and they're doing really great with the boating, the fishing business and everything. And he suggests that Irene live with him because he knows everything is up in the air going on. While Irene is living at the house, she finds a diary from Rosie with a lot of the details of her and Russ's relationship. She kind of takes this out on Huck, thinking that he absolutely had to know about the relationship and how could he feel right with Rosie being with a married man. She doesn't really allow Huck to explain that. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't get into her business like that, so he really didn't know the full details of what was going on. You also see Baker, Cash kind of, I guess, Baker wins Ayers, and they kind of have a relationship going, except at the same time, her ex-boyfriend, Mick, has kind of pushed his way back into the situation, proposed to her. He's kind of stalking her. He hangs out at the bar that she works at part-time and kind of takes up this whole, I'm not leaving this bar stool until I get Ayers back and she's mine type of situation. Baker also has, like, you know, Floyd and other things to worry about there as well. So he's like, I need to get things together for my son. And then you have Cash, who kind of, throughout this whole time, has been a bit of a slacker. And now in this final book, he's kind of met somebody new, and there's a bit more of a love interest going on with this other girl, and a job that he has, and getting set up with a place to live. So he's almost sort of been the one progressing the most since they've got to the island. So you also find out in this book that Russ's boss's secretary, named Marilyn Monroe, had given, well, in the first book you find out she gave Irene some kind of like secret tip to kind of like lead her on the right path of suspicion. Now in this one, they actually meet, and she tells Irene all the shady stuff that had been going down, and basically how her boss, who you find out is also her boyfriend in a relationship with, that he had really set Russ up to fall when all of these things went down. So it's pretty much revealed that he's the one that got Rosie and Russ killed in the helicopter accident. You also find out that now that she's testified, she's like, she's not going to go back to him. She's like going to go and like live her life now, which it's kind of like, good for you, Marilyn. You also get to see Maya a little bit more in this one. I believe in this one she's 13 or 14-ish, and she's kind of discovering boys, and she does have some boy in particular that she likes, and she also sneaks back into the house, basically Russ's mansion. She sneaks back into that house to hang out in the pool and have like a little, you know, sneaky party with her friends. And I think that's partially she just like wanted to have like one last good memory at the mansion. So another big plot twist that happens in the third book is you find out that Ayers is pregnant. Now the big question is it Baker's? Is it Cash's? Is it Mick's? Whose baby is it? She's kind of tipped back and forth at this point between Baker and Mick, and what should she do? And if she does pick one, she's going to kind of have to admit it to the other one, you know, that she's pregnant. So it's sort of a little bit weird too, because like through the very small island gossip mill, it goes around pretty quickly that it is Baker's baby. So I think that's one of the reasons why Mick backs off a little bit. But that is a big little twist in the third book there. So the final and biggest ending to this story is that there's a huge hurricane, and they all need to get together and hunker down for this hurricane. So you see Irene and Huck come back together for this. Baker and Ayers are there with Maya. In this particular case, Cash decides to stay with the girl that he's dating now, he's in a relationship with, at the place where she's responsible for. So she's like staying at like a friend's house or whatever, so he feels he has to stay there with her and protect her. And of course, because we need a little bit more drama, Ayers is going to go into labor during this hurricane when they cannot leave, and they're all in this house together. So she winds up having her baby there. And in the final Elin Hilderbrand twist here, at the end, after the hurricane's over and everybody's okay, a reporter from Nantucket has been assigned to one last job, to go to St. John and report on the hurricane and how the people are doing post-hurricane there. And she is one of the members of the Quinn family, who's also Irene's second cousin. So there's the tie-in between other stories and this story, and back to Nantucket, which is where the majority of Elin Hilderbrand's stories take place. So, I mean, that was a nice little tie-in at the end, because I really did love the Quinn family. So, yeah, that was it. And I don't know. I do recommend this book. I definitely think 1 and 2 were better than 3. I don't know what I expected from 3. I mean, I still love the story overall. So, I don't know. I just thought it would be interesting to get to talk about them a bit. And if anybody else has read any of these books, I would absolutely be interested in discussing them or anything else you want to talk about. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.